Good morning and welcome to this episode of your Tech Care podcast. You are joining me, Sangha, and my brilliant co-host, Morten. Today we have with us Anne-Sophie de Dreuille, Country Manager, Famileo, UK and Ireland. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I'm imagining we're on the Tech Care sponsored stadium somewhere in the UK now. And Anne-Sophie, you were walking in and the crowd is going berserk over Famileo. How do you feel about that?
Oh my God, very intimidated probably. But also kind of proud because this is what we want to achieve in the UK. This is where we are in France and this is the aim in the UK. So probably a bit proud too.
Yeah, of course. And why would you think that you would be invited to this stadium on this day? What is it that Famileo does that makes them applaud you today?
I think it's how it can make a difference in a lot of older person's life and even some family life. A very simple difference, but so meaningful. Just by reconnecting all these family members, rekindling with this generation who really struggle to have all the information that we share on social media. And bringing them so much joy in all these lovely messages that they get from their family. I think that's how it impacts their life and also very rewarding for the family who is doing that for their loved one.
It certainly sounds very rewarding, I can say. And obviously we know who you are and we know about Famileo, Sang and myself, but we're keen for everybody else to understand and learn more. So I'm thinking very pragmatically here. What is Famileo? What is the product? How does it work?
So it started because I think a lot of people have seen that, but we have two generations. Our generation who just media and use phones, and the older generation who can be very isolated from that because sometimes they struggle with technology or don't like to use any social media. So it was born with this idea to reconnect those two generations that are eager one another to receive news, but can't really communicate the same way. And so pragmatically, what Famileo is for this younger generation, it's an app because we all use our mobile phones today, on which the family gets this very private account and can share their news, photos, updates, messages for their grandparents, the person that they choose. So my grandma, for example, I use Famileo to send her a little message to tell her that I'm thinking about her, that I'm doing this, that I went to this friend's wedding and I had fun. And just telling her that on the every day I think about her. My cousins do the same, and every 2 weeks or every month, depending on the frequency that we want, that we choose, the system just puts together a nice little newspaper all about those news that we have posted, and it's laid out in a very easy way for her to understand, and it's printed, and she receives it in the form of this printed magazine with all the messages and the photos that we have sent her on the app. So she can stay in touch with us this way. She can see what we've been up to. And it's really something that she treasures and keep. Now my grandmother has a big pile of gazettes and she just keep them all. And whenever we visit, she loves to read it with us, or when she has friends coming over. It's also a great way to start a conversation. She's just brag all the time about what her grandkids have been doing, and she just waits so much for this to arrive every 2 weeks.
I love that. And people out there, if you're thinking this is some kind of a smallish startup thing, go on to the Google Play and read the 30,000 reviews that are on there and the 4.8 scoring out of 5. And I'm going to read one out loud now. Great initiative and service. And this is of May 13, 2023. We use it with our family to give our grandmother, 92 years of age, updates on what we do. She loves it, especially the pictures. She keeps the monthly newspapers in folders and reads them again and again. And that's from Wouter Rosen. Well done, Wouter.
Fantastic. And Anne-Sophie, your journey into Famileo, as in, you you shared the story. I know the story you shared with me, but I think it will be a lovely story for our audiences to listen.
Yeah, so I started at Famileo. I knew the company because I was first a service user back like 5 years ago. I started using Famileo with my own family, and I thought what the company was doing was amazing, so I just followed them. And when they opened this opportunity to bring Famileo into care homes in the UK, I thought it was such a nice mission to do. So I just applied, and I've been working for them since January 2021 now, and working with a lot of care homes to bring the benefit of the solution into their care home so that their residents can keep this connection with their loved one and receive updates from their grandchildren, probably living very far away from the care home or not visiting that much. So it's been a lovely journey. I met with incredible people in the care sector. It's such a welcoming sector. So yeah, I wish it continues so much more, and it's always such a pleasure to do the events and things like that in this sector.
Yeah, I think there's something very unique to what you do in catering to different media, isn't it? I'm not fully aware of. I can't really say that fusion where I've seen that before, but I really like how you make things that's very at hand and easy for that generation with apps and everything, and being very selfie-ish, not selfish, but taking a lot of selfies and then turning that into something that's tangible and recognizable in the format of a newspaper or a gazette. Obviously, when I explain it, I think it sounds very simple, like it should be a good service, but then the impact, as you're saying, is something incredible. And it wasn't just for fun. I said about the reviews, 30,000 reviews with 4.8 score. That's amazing. It really says something about that impact.
And isn't it, all innovations, the simple ones are much more powerful, I guess, because, you can easily translate into huge value in people's lives. Now, I just wanted to ask a little bit. This is a technology and care podcast, Anne-Sophie. So, how important is the technology aspect in Familio's business, and what are some of the cool new things that you are using or wanting to translate that back to a generation who perhaps doesn't use technology as much?
Yeah, so I think one of the major force as well of Famileo is it just to relate to what you're saying. A lot of older person actually are also using the app to contribute to their own gazette, if that makes sense. Like, so I have I'm doing gazettes for a lot of people. So I'll just take my example because I think it's easier. For my granddad, is living with very late stage dementia. So honestly, he doesn't have the capacity to use the app, so he just received the printed version. But my grandmother, we also do a gazette for her, but she's also on social media. She likes to use social media. So she also created her account on Famileo on the app, and she also sent photos of what she's been doing in her day. And then she gets the photos of ourselves, but also of her inside the gazette. So the app is the technology that we created is very simple to use. And sometimes making the simpler things are the hardest to create.
Yeah.
And this is why we also get a lot of usage. So you talked about the reviews on the App Store, on the Play Store. We have 1.5 million family members using the Famileo app. It's because really throughout all this generation, it's very, very easy to use. And this is how you create usage. If you can have the brightest idea, but if the technology you're using is complicated, it's never going to work. And I guess also the Gazette, so the family newsletter, is also accessible on a tablet or on a phone. You can see it digitally. And we added some other features for the care homes, which are more techy, to help them also send back some information to the families. So they have this other app just for professional to send photos and messages back to the families and to create their internal newsletter, because we thought it was also very important that they could value their work and show visitors, regulators what they've been doing. I think lots of care homes have to do an internal newsletter, but it's sometimes difficult for them to create on Word or PowerPoint because maybe they don't have the IT skill or the time. So we created this very easy template. It's a piece of technology as well, that creates almost automatically their newsletter for them.
That was actually just my question was about activities coordination, yeah, and how I've seen on social media actually that some or a lot of care homes and nursing homes and what have been using this exactly for what you're describing there. And what's the reception from the care professionals then?
I think so. To be honest, the thing that for the care home to be able to send photos to the family, it's not so new. You have this in a lot of care planning solution. But because on Famileo you don't get just the next of kin, they're actually very happy to have a way to reach out to usually the grandchildren, because it's a very big hit with the grandchildren Famileo. Yeah. And the response to the newsletter tool is honestly incredible. It's a time saver for them. It's just because they have all those photos stored in their Famileo account, all the photos that they frequently send to the families, it makes them so easy for them to just take back those messages and create their newsletter. So it's all stored in one place. It saves them some time, and I think it's also very rewarding for them to be able to create this magazine about their care home to show what they've been doing, because they do so much things. Maybe at the end of the month they kind of have forgotten everything that they've done. So if they can keep track of this, it's really rewarding for them.
Yeah. Have you seen any, or obviously you have, but from the regulator or inspector or any feedback with regards to what you're just saying there?
Yeah, so we got a few mentions in CQC reports under usually responsiveness. So the CQC mentioned about how it actually fights loneliness and really helps with some isolated residents. And they also talk about how person-centered it is, because even the newsletter that the home creates can be very person-centered. They can choose to do this newsletter just about a birthday that they organize for one resident in particular, and just put the photos of this birthday and print it for the resident just as a photo album, a memory book. But I think fighting loneliness was also at the really beginning of Famileo. Is we have all our older parents sometimes feeling very lonely because we can't visit them all the time with our busy life. So how do we help them feel less lonely when they have this big family sometimes? And it's just like, yeah, you can know a lot of people, but if you never have contact with them, you can feel very lonely.
That's absolutely true. And I'm thinking what I really like here is, it's obviously what I think you've done really well is that the need's been there, and how we've sort of satisfied the need for communication and for continuously feeling as part of the family, despite having gone to live in a care home. I think it's the way, and you just said it before, the way you're making it easy for generations younger to contribute, because obviously if they had to take photos with a traditional camera and get to go to the store and get them printed and go back and then deliver them, that would not be very convenient for them. But in this way, you're sort of making technology be the enabler that we're talking a lot about on this show.
And it's funny also because we get a lot of feedbacks from families about how it has impacted their loved one, obviously, but also they say it actually has made them rekindle with other members of their family, because you get to see what your other family members have posted for your grandma. So I can also see what my cousins are doing, even though they're in Canada. So, and then it creates this kind of healthy competition of who is posting the most. Your cousin has posted something that you want to do the same when you're traveling.
Yeah.
It's like a very private, very private Instagram that will be
Yeah.
just for your family, you know. So it's nice also because it's a way, yeah, to get some news from your cousin that you might have lost contact with. And it's all those interactions are centered with the older member of your family at the center, which I think it's really lovely. And some family members where the loved one passed away, they say that they're kind of sad because now they don't have a reason to use Famileo anymore, so they're kind of afraid that they're going to lose this connection between one another. So, and also I think it shows something very important of our civilization, is that it's usually the older person of our family that keep us all together. So it's important to value this person and to do something for this person, I think.
Wow, that's some really lovely words. I like that, and I agree with you. I wanted to ask you, as you said, some care planning systems, including Sequoia, have got the ability to share photos, not in a as cool a way as this, but we're also seeing the use of these to create timelines and about me, and also for reminiscence. Do you use the product, or is the product used for something like that too?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So indeed, the activity providers, we've received many feedbacks that the photos, they trigger so many memories. So it's a very natural reminiscence activity that they get out of the Gazette. So they print it, they deliver the family Gazette to the loved one, to the resident. And when they see the photos, some of them, they trigger so many past memories or a whole story. We had this activity provider saying that the other day in a Gazette, this resident got a photo of tomato plants. So just a garden photo, really. And the resident started remembering that his wife used to do this gardening, and they used to have tomato plants in their garden as well, and started a whole story just with a photo. And the photo was provided by the family member. So for the activity coordinator, it's like she didn't have to do much, right?
Diamond, gold.
Yes, exactly. And there's so many stories like that. So it's really natural reminiscence. And also, we do a lot of training with the care home. We do also webinars for the families. And what we tell them, usually if their loved one is living with very late dementia, they can put old photos in the Gazette, because as you know, people living with dementia usually have more memories of the past. So if you do put an old photo, you can just go through your old albums, take a photo, it will go in the Gazette, and usually it will bring a lot of memories back, and also give things to talk about for the activity coordinator, get to know more of the residents. So yeah, I think we should work a bit more on that and help families create a life storybook. I think you mentioned that kind of, yeah. So yeah.
I think
Sounds
this is
amazing.
how it becomes much more real, isn't it? And then people talk about just using AI to create care planning and care notes, and you think, no, we have humans to add the emotions and experience in there and make it much more personal, much more real. How do you see the behavior pattern in different countries, Anne-Sophie? Like, do you have to push in some country more for them to increase the engagement versus some other countries where it is much more natural for them to contribute regularly?
Good question.
That's a very good question. Yeah. So I think in France and in the UK, the usage is very similar, because we're always looking at numbers. It's really similar. I think both our countries have this culture, or had this culture, of sending postcards for birthdays, for any celebration. So it feels it's actually natural to do something like that. Obviously now in France, the concept is so famous in a way that it doesn't need a lot of explaining or training. Whereas in the UK, we do more training. I think the activity provider has to explain a bit more to family members, rather than in France. Like, I think most people know about Famileo. So if it's available in the care home where your loved one is, it would be easy for you to start. We work also in Spain, in the United States, and Canada. And it's funny, because you would think that in Spain they're very, very close to their family, which is true. but we have to push it more there. It's difficult to know why. Maybe the technology is, I honestly, I don't really know why, but to be honest, we need to push it a bit more there. In the United States and Canada, it's more about convincing the care homes to the what they call the retirement village there to take this on board. And it needs much more push as well with the families. Maybe because they're much more spread out. It's such a big country. So it might be more difficult for the care home to reach out to the family members. And also it's very, very big care homes. They usually have a lot of residents. So maybe the team is less in contact with the family that they are in the UK or in France. So, yeah.
It's funny with those cultural nuances and also sitting from where I am, I wouldn't have thought that the difference between France and Spain would have been as big as you're describing with your current experience right now. And yes, I think again then in the US and in Canada with the further distances, you would have thought, oh, even better, because then I can stay updated and I can sort of soothe my conscience from afar. But yeah, it's obviously also about, as you're saying, it's also a commercial aspect, isn't it? And the brand platform you're standing on. So if this is really big already, or if there's also even competitors that's doing something similar, it's already nurtured in a way and more mature, and people will know that this is something they can actually go and do. So I guess there are a lot of aspects, as you're saying.
We have just one last question for you, Anne-Sophie, and this is a new tradition for this season. We are asking one question instead of two. And the question is, who in social care do you admire the most?
Difficile. Très difficile, Anne-Sophie.
It's a hard one. I don't know a lot of people very close in the care sector, but someone who inspired me a lot and helped me a lot is David Moore, the dementia lead of Methodist Homes.
Wow.
He has been a huge support for us since the beginning. So it's a way also to say thank you. So yeah, it's someone, and it's also someone that's not always on the platforms, but does an incredible work within his care home group. So yeah.
Wow. Kudos, David, then.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today, Anne-Sophie.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Take care.
Nice talking to you. Take care.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, review, and share your favorite Take Care podcast with your friends and colleagues. Until we meet next week, take care.